Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, KJ, and I'm really excited. I've been trying to get this gentleman on the podcast now, but, we all have schedules, and sometimes the stars have to align to get people on your podcast, and so I'm really happy to have him here. And today you are going to hear from Vernon Evans. Welcome to the show, Vernon.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I think your story is going to be very compelling for a lot of folks out there. I just know a tidbit of where you came from and kind of where you grew up, but I want to get deeper into that story because I really believe the listeners out there are going to relate, right? Because just the history of America in the last 30, 40 years, right? And especially maybe these last few years. But so I really think that we're going to give some good value and feedback to the folks out there, and hopefully they can learn a couple of things and avoid some mistakes and pitfalls. But let's start off what I usually start with most of my guests that come on here, because we're talking about money, right? And which sometimes could be a difficult conversation for people. And as most people who listen to my podcast understand, we're not going to talk in specifics, dollars or numbers or whatever you do or don't have. That's not what it's about. It's about the lessons of why you do the things you do with money, right? Why maybe you did before and don't do now, or vice versa. But let's start by, as far back as you can remember, talk to us about how old were you when mom or dad or both sat you down and taught you about money?
That's a pretty quick answer. Never.
So, as most of my listeners know, that's 95% of people, right? It just doesn't happen. But this is why people struggle with money, right? If no one ever sits you down and teaches you about money, how can they expect us to go to school, get good grades, get a JOB, make money, and then, well, what am I supposed to do now, right? And a lot of the folks I talk to understand now, if you're following me, you understand now that through a lot of these conversations and research, we handle money based on what we watch mom and dad do. Right? From a very young age. I find it to be between the ages of 5 and 7, 5 and 8 years old, when we're watching mom and dad do what they do, right? They go to work, whatever they're doing to make a living. Whether you have mom and dad in the household or you only have one parent, doesn't matter. You're watching whichever one. And your parent is either a spender or a saver. And in your case, as you're growing up, what would you describe your mom or dad? A spender or saver?
Well, it was definitely just my mom. My biological father, don't really call him my dad because we don't give out participation trophies here. He left a long time ago. But anyway, my mom was more of a spender.
Spender. Okay, which is, I think that's normal, right? And so subconsciously, as between 5 and 7, if that's what we're seeing our parents do, that's normal. That's what we grow up believing. It's normal to get paid and just spend your money. And if mom or dad or your mom never sat you down and said, here's what I'm doing with my money and why I'm doing this with my money, how can we learn? Right? So, but that being said, if she didn't actually sit you down and teach you about money, what age do you think you were when you started to realize what money was and what we used it for? How old were you then?
That's a good question. Well, it's funny because I think I'm more of an observer of people. So when I see my mom spending, and I see the outcome of what led to her spending, or other people, not just to say my mom, I kind of made my own decisions and formulated my own opinions based on what was around me. And I was a saver growing up. I loved to see money in my bank account. Even before I had a bank account, I remember I used to save all my lunch money, get lunch money from my mom, save it all, and then after months down the line, buys a video game or something with some of the money I saved. So it was kind of odd.
Interesting answer. And I get that, right? Because if you're single mom, would you classify yourself, was your you and your mom, were you living in on a poverty level, maybe middle class, upper class? Where were you?
I'd say a lower middle class, and it was me,
middle.
my mom, and my sister.
Okay.
And growing up, I don't remember much of the struggle. My mom, she had multiple jobs early on, and then she like get a job making a couple dollars an hour and have a second job, and then get another job making like $1 more, 75 cents more, and quit one of the jobs, and kept building upon that until she got a job working for UPS, and UPS was paying her enough to quit her other job and just had one job.
Well, she did what moms and parents do. We do what we have to do to support and raise the kids.
Definitely.
Right? So your mom was definitely so, and I know you now. This is obviously where you learned your work ethic, right? Watching mom, like you want something in life, you got to go work.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Because you and I both know now. There's a lot of people out there, all age brackets actually, don't do that.
True.
Right? I hate to use the word lazy, but basically they're, they're not, well, maybe they're just not ambitious enough to go out to the world and get it. And I know you well enough, like Vernon goes out and gets it, right? He wants a piece of the world. He wants to put a dent in his world. So that being said, you did the opposite of what you saw. When mom was she worked hard, multiple jobs until she got a good solid one, but she was a spender. And you said to yourself at some point, at whatever, you tell me what age, like, you know what, I don't want to go down that path. I want to go down this path.
Yeah.
How old do you think when you thought about that? How old do you think you were? How young?
Let's see. I was probably in the 5th or 6th grade when that happened.
10 or 12?
Yeah, but I didn't really learn about money or what money was till I was about 17 when I went to Ohio State, fresh out of high school. And I went with some friends to Lake Cumberland in Kentucky, and I saw people with houseboats. And I was like, wow, people have houseboats? Right. Most people I know live in apartment complexes. And then there's another side of the world on houseboats.
Right. So
they're owning houseboats.
So that's a 5-year gap. So between then, I'm sure like mom, like most parents do, she gave you the few dollars to go buy whatever, have lunch. Hey, I want these new shoes, and she would buy that stuff for you. But between 12 and 17, like most kids, and again, this is not a bad thing, that we don't really realize what our parents have to do to get money, not only just to keep the roof over our heads and, food on the table, but we want other things as kids, right? We want things, right? That's what kids want. They want stuff. They don't need stuff. They want stuff. They don't think about the needs, right? Till you get older. So you're sharing with us that at 17, a whole new world kind of opened up to you. Like, holy mackerel, there's other things out here on a higher level.
Definitely.
Is that where you got hungry for life and money?
No, I think I got hungry a lot younger than that. Somewhere in between that gap. I can't really say when, but my cousin, Michael Wiley, he's always been a big influence to me. I'm glad he was a star football player at Ohio State before he started playing football in the NFL for the Cowboys. Actually, when I was with him in Dallas, that's when I got a little hungry for money, when I'm seeing people in Rolls Royces, Cadillac Escalades, people with $1 million homes, and playing dominoes with Emmitt Smith,
Right. So you said to yourself, I want that life.
Oh, yeah. I definitely said to myself, I want that life, or at least I want that those monetary advantages.
So, and a lot of people do, right? We'll see that. And in today's world with social media, we can see that even more, right? You don't have to have the privilege of going with someone to see that stuff. But talk to us about, you said you became a saver. And when you said you're a saver and you were saving your lunch money, but then at the end of the month, you accumulate whatever $X was because you wanted whatever it was. You said
I was a saver and a spender at the same time.
Right. Well, you say, you know what, which is good, because what I want to get to is you saved for a purpose. And your purpose was, hey, I wanted the new, I think you said a game.
Yeah, it was Sega Genesis.
Genesis. So that thing cost $X, whatever it was. And you said, well, if I save my lunch money and due to probably a couple other things or whatever, I can get that because that's what you wanted. But that's a great subconscious lesson to learn, because that means you had to sacrifice, one, having lunch, right? I'm not spending my lunch money.
Well, I'd make my lunch. I'd make my lunch every day. So I was actually probably taxing my mom on both levels. So I'd make my lunch every single day, but tell her I needed lunch money. And she'd give me lunch money to go to school. And I just save that lunch money. And then.
So you could buy what you wanted.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's okay because, again, learning how to save, I don't realize this or not, and a lot of folks out there, guys, saving is a very disciplined action, right? You have to be disciplined about that. And unfortunately, in today's world right now, in 2023, around 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And the only reason that people live paycheck to paycheck is because they don't handle their money correctly. And saving is a part of that. You know what I mean? And by understanding that at an early age, that I'm sure we'll talk about how that could be advantageous to you later in life now. Although, Vernon, right now, you're how old right now?
41.
41. So, yeah, all right, you've got a few years under your belt of working and making some money, so we'll get into that. As you went to school, talk to me about this, because I typically hear from a lot of folks, what you're probably getting ready to share with me, but I'll ask the question. When did you get your first credit card?
18, most likely.
Yeah.
Walking around a college campus, they got people lined up all around trying to give out credit cards. Sign this application, you get a credit card.
Right. So what was your mindset when you got your first one? I don't care about what the dollar amount was, but when you got that thing,
Free money.
and you realize now it's what? Not free money.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. It can be a trap. And at this age now, again, and I won't go down the big, deep talk about credit cards, but no, they do that. They do trap the kids over there going to school. They think it's free money. Like, you just gave me $2,000 or whatever the limit may have been. Yahoo, let's go
into
eat.
the mall.
Yeah, let's go eat and shop and, whatever, college students drink beer or whatever, right? And get yourself in a pickle. So when that happened, did you go down the same trap as most kids? You just charged that thing all the way up?
I don't even remember. I don't believe I charged it all the way up when I first got it. And I never been one to just accumulate stuff just to have stuff.
Okay.
But I'm sure I spent it on something irresponsibly, but I don't remember going into debt.
Well, how much did you know at that time about credit and how credit worked?
Nothing.
So they just said, sign here. Here's a credit card, $1,000, whatever it was on it, and you're like, thank you, and went on your way. And
Can I get another?
Can I get another one? Right. How old do you think you were when you started to either be proactive about learning about credit and how it worked? How old do you think you were when that happened? Do you remember where you learned it?
Where I learned, I can't remember when I learned it, but I know the last couple of years I've been a student of all sorts of things, but it's definitely been before that I started, but I just don't know when. I don't want to make.
You fully understand credit and how it works and how it accumulates and how people lose it and the advantages of having it or not having it?
Fully, I can't say fully. I don't think anybody fully understands anything because, I'm a student of life. I'm always learning.
Right.
So I definitely don't fully understand it, but I have a pretty good working knowledge of it.
Okay. All right, good. So as you were cruising through school, learning life's lessons, and you're always learning, as you're saying, when did you start to be proactive about learning about money? Because you were learning, kids go to school to learn XYZ career, whatever that may be, but they don't really go to school. Even the people who go and learn about finance, not really teaching you about how to handle your money. Finance classes teach you to teach people how to handle their money. Because I've talked to plenty of financial people who are broke, right?
Yeah.
Because no, I know how to, park your money over here to make it work, but I don't know how to do it for myself. So how old were you, or what life lessons, money lessons did you learn at what age? When you I got to start taking this serious money thing. I got to do the right things with it. How old were you when you kind of made that decision?
Probably in the last 5-6 years when I tried to deeply learn it.
So the mid 30s.
Yeah.
Right. So as I have my conversations and the listeners understand, the regular listeners, it's around age 30 is typical, plus or minus a year or so, that we reflect. You're like, man, I've been working 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. I don't have any money. Why? I make money. I've had money. Why don't I have any money? Right. And we have to reflect on these reasons why, and then start to be proactive. Like, well, you're making money for a purpose, right? We're out here giving value to the world on some level. Most people trade time for money, right? Or value for money. But now what do we do next, right? And so I teach people in my course, go learn whatever it is you want to do as a JOB or trading value for money. That's great. But the game begins once you get that money. Once you get paid, that's when the game begins. And I teach people nothing is more important than making money. Make money.
Oh yeah,
Make money. And I know you know this lesson because we've talked about it.
Indeed.
Make money. Make money. Nothing's going to make more money because we all can only work so many hours a day, right? Most people work 8 or whatever, and the workaholics will work 14 to 16. But at the end of the day, mathematically, until you learn how to make money work, you're just never going to be wealthy. You're never going to have a lot of money. You can live a lifestyle. You can be kind of comfortable. But if you aspire the Rolls Royces, the houseboats, the $1 million homes, it typically doesn't come by trading time for money. It's putting your money to work. It's leveraging, right? So before the age of 5 years ago, where was your mindset with money? What did you think?
My mindset, money. I mean, I think I always consider it to be a tool.
Okay.
But I didn't know. I didn't know or think about making money to make money. I think I was just thinking about trying to make as much money as possible, getting a high paying job, and you'll be good. Make $100,000 a year and you're set. Because I was a reentry student. You know, at 29, I was still in school. Like, I'm sure we'll get into it, so I don't want to talk too much now, but I was in law school, I think, at 29. So I didn't start making money till around 31, 32. And I still don't consider, now that I know what money is, hell, even right now, I'm still not making money, not the money I want, not for the Rolls Royces and the houses.
Right. So again, and all of us are out there learning these lessons, you know, day by day, week by week, year by year. And this is why I like to talk about money. So let's talk about, at one point in your life, have you had a money conversation? You never had it with mom, right? Because mom didn't teach, but that's okay. That's 95% of people. Did you have a mentor along the way to talk about money? I know you've had mentors on other things, but what about money? Has anybody, have you been, there's people I've talked to, they're like, man, that guy, you've described somebody who went and played for the Cowboys, so he made money. Like, is there anybody in your life, or have you been in your life where you said, you know what, can you teach me what you did with money? Because I see you're successful, right? And so basically asking someone to be a mentor with money. Have you done that?
Indirectly. So again, I'm a kind of a nerd, seeker of knowledge. So I get a lot of my mentors through books, through reading, and now through social media. You know what I mean? So I follow guys like Wes Watson, was in jail 10 years and got out, and he's like making stupid money, doing all types of things. Chris Johnson, who started his own business. So I think a lot of my mentors that talk about money and teach you about money are on Instagram. People that I haven't really spoken to, except just spoke with Wes actually not too long ago.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, because here we are at 2023, and we can leverage social media to have these, what do we want to call mentors? They're.
Also, I want to add one more person. I did speak to Mr. Money Conversation Self, KJ, a couple years ago. You were trying to take me under your wing, teach me real estate, but my eyes weren't as open as they should have been. So I talked to you, even in the conversations we had. You're probably one of the only real life people I talk to about money and investing. As you know, I'm always asking you questions, or been in your ear for over the last couple of years,
right,
to learn more. So
let me ask you: it's probably I'm going to guess, you correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably a comfort level that you're learning via, because you're an avid reader and, you know, like you said, a student of life. Is it make you uncomfortable to ask someone in person to be a mentor?
Not at all.
Not at all? Because there are people out there that definitely are. They're like, they're introverts, right? And they're like, no, I'll learn whatever, but I can't talk to you, kind of a thing.
Oh, no, I don't mind asking anybody for anything, you know. That's something you got to shake. You got to get rid of that fear in all facets of life. But I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want to be a bother to people. I like to add value. And nowadays, everybody's asking everybody for freaking everything. I don't know if you can curse on your show, but everybody's asking everybody for everything. They're trying to get as much as they can for somebody with giving as little as possible. And that's never been me. I'd like to give value, or exchange value, barter for value. So no, I don't mind. I think I have a lot of value to give, but to answer your question, no, I have no problem asking anybody for almost anything.
So you would actually, so if some young person, right, came to you and saw your successes, what you've been doing. You're like, you know what? I mean, if they asked you to be a mentor, you'd be cool. You'd do it.
Yeah, maybe even coach, try to get paid for it. But yeah, I mean, in some aspects, in some avenues, definitely. I like to help out
Well,
I'm all about helping people.
Well, let me ask you this: if at the age, I'll say 22, right? You're going to school. Do you believe if you'd had a mentor, if you'd have somehow found a mentor to mentor you a little more through life, with money, with life decisions, do you think your life would be different today?
It's possible. Well, one, if I was ready to receive what they were telling me at 22, I definitely think I would. It would be different. But if I wasn't, it won't help.
I love that answer. Because guys, you're out there. The listeners are out there, and they're in the 20. Call it the 20s or whatever, and you got to be ready.
Yeah,
you got to be ready to receive anything at any time in life. You don't have to be 22, 32, 42, 50. It could be any age.
Definitely.
That you have to make that decision of receiving. I love talking about money, and money benefits us because of time. And so the earlier that we can talk about it in life, the better, and the more money you'll have later in life. If for the folks who are, I'll say over 50, just learning the game, it's harder because once you understand the rule of 72 compounding, right? We don't live forever, right? And you're not going to make money forever. Typically, most people will make money till around age 70-ish, right? Now, there are other people who make money until they die, but those examples are extreme, and there'd be people like a Warren Buffett, right? He doesn't need to make any more money, but it's a game to him, and he likes to wake up and go play the game, right? Oh, yeah. The guy's 90 years old, and he's going to do it until he actually dies.
Damn,
right?
He's 90?
He's 90, right? But there's a lot of folks like him that are the billionaires that they don't consider it work at one point in time. It's not about the money, right? It's about following a passion. It's following, sometimes you just get stuck in a routine, and your routine is I get up at 5 a.m. every day, and, I do my little exercise, I eat right, and then what am I going to tackle today? What value or problem am I going to solve
5
today?
a.m., they're sleeping in.
Yeah,
my
for you.
For 2:15.
Right? You're an early riser, but my point is that it's not an age of when and why we should stop making money.
Indeed.
Right. But unfortunately, if I asked you what age is retirement, what are you going to tell me?
Death.
For you, it's death, right? For most of society, when I ask that question, there's a number, there's an age.
Which is because they're waiting for the government to take care of them.
Exactly, which is 65, right?
Insane.
And so I teach people, well, it's not an age to have a particular type of retirement because I like to use Mark Zuckerberg at the other end of the spectrum, right? When he developed Facebook in his mid-20s, early 20s, and became a billionaire before the age 30. Like, he could have retired, right? But he didn't, and he hasn't now because he's like Buffett, right? He follows a daily passion, right? So making money is not the issue. It's not the problem here. That's why it doesn't matter to me what people do to make a living. The game doesn't start until you cash your check, right? You go trade time or value, whatever you want to do. But the minute you cash that check hits your bank, the game is on. And what we do with that money will determine what we will or won't have in the future. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
So what do you think in your life so far at 41 has been your worst money decision? What one do you like, man, why did I do that?
It was stupid. I remember buying one of those $4,000 or $5,000. No, I think $3,000 vacuum cleaners for no reason at all.
Like you didn't have a place to use it? Why did you buy it?
I mean, I still don't use it now. One of those door-to-door salesmen came to my door.
Right.
I like what he had to say. I can't remember. I think I was listening to some podcast or somebody speaking about those door-to-door salesmen and different things of value. I can't remember the exact story, but I remember buying it. And the wife, she got on me. I think she was my fiance at the time.
Right.
And still, I probably used that thing like 3 or 4 times. So
basically, the salesman was a salesman.
Not really.
No?
He didn't sell it. I was ready to receive it. His sales pitch was probably trash, to be particularly honest. But again, if you walk into a dealership and you want something, you're going to get it.
Right.
It doesn't matter how good or bad the salesman is.
Oh, it was timing then.
Yeah, he showed up at the right spot at the right time.
Right.
So
Right.
For all those door-to-door salesmen, keep knocking.
Okay. So let's talk about, because I talk a lot about this, and it is one of my chapters in my course, goals. How old were you when you consciously were making goals?
I was young. I was super young. Again, I mean, it could have been a goal to have a video game or a goal to get in shape or to. So I was young. I can't give you an exact age. I don't know why I be blanking on some things, and some stuff I remember very clearly. So I couldn't tell you the exact age, but I was young. I was probably like in middle school.
How old were
fifth,
you?
Sixth grade.
So you've been making goals most of your life. There's a lot of people, but I want people to understand, and I talk about this and I teach the difference between a goal and a dream. A goal is something that is specific and you actually write it down. So can you remember how old were you? Okay, I have a goal, AKA dreams turns into a goal once you actually write it down, make a plan and follow it through. When did that happen?
That was I probably started writing things down more consistently. Probably within the last 10 years or so.
Okay. So what kind of a change did you see when you actually, because again, this is a great lesson that I love to teach because I teach people goal setting is so vitally important in all of our lives. I like to equate it to the GPS in your car, right? Every day when we all get in our vehicles to go wherever, whether it's work, the supermarket, wherever you want to go, you know the path you're going. You know what I mean? And if you don't know the path in today's world because of technology, you'll hit the GPS button. And you plug the address in, and the GPS will tell you exactly what streets, right turn, left turn, all the way to get there, and you'll get there. And that's what goals are in life. And if we don't have them, how do we know where we're going and when we're going to get there? We don't, right? And so share with us, you're remembering when you started to write them down, and you said about 10 years ago.
Actually, that was wrong. I remember one of my first goals that I wrote down was 2005, 2006.
Okay.
To get kind of where I am now. I was working at Save-On or CVS from a few years removed from being Ohio State right out of high school, and I got arrested. I was feeling like a loser. And I was just like, man, this is not where I envisioned myself,
Right.
And so I remember reading a lot of books, and it was a theme of hard work. So all these people came from humble beginnings, no matter what it was. I read about Patrice Lumumba, who was the first I think one of the first black prime ministers or African prime ministers in the Congo. I was reading about Arnold Schwarzenegger, Oprah Winfrey, Mohandas Gandhi, all these people that did all these great things. And Booker T. Washington, it all started from hard work. And I was like, hey, man, I can work hard. If Johnny Cochran stuck out to me because I think I wanted to be an attorney for the longest. Couldn't remember why, but I know I wanted to be like Johnny.
Right.
Then when I found out you had to go to law school or graduate school after after college, I was like, that's too much school, and gave up. School's always easy for me, so I don't know why that took me out the game. But once I got arrested, and it wasn't even the getting arrested part that was the transformational part. So I'm from San Diego, or my mom's from San Diego, California, Southeast, one of the worst parts in San Diego. And it's a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs, a lot of my family members that are into drugs and gangs. So my mom moved us to Oceanside, California. One of her brothers went to jail from like 15 to 27 and in and out the rest of his life, in jail right now. And so my mom always had a block on her phone, meaning you couldn't call from prison. No call is getting through from prison. It's not, you're not gonna pick up the phone like, would you accept a collect call from whoever? And when I got in trouble, still, I knew this, but I totally forgot. I tried to call mom. It's like, oh, this number doesn't accept collect calls. So I called my sister. And I bail out that. My mom gets me out that same day. It's been like a week, maybe 2 weeks later, the phone rings. So I go to answer the phone. It says, would you accept a collect call from? I was like, what? We don't accept collect calls. So I hang up. And I was like, how did that even get through? And I was like, shit. my mom took the block off her phone because she thought I might call her from jail.
Wow.
And that broke my heart. And so it wasn't even the jail that made me change, but it was that realization.
It was disappointing your mom.
Yeah. So when she came home that day, I asked her, well, hey, did you take the block off your phone because you thought I may call you from jail? She said yes. And again, that broke my heart. Even now, I think I'll get emotional every time I think about that.
Right.
So I was like, something's got to change. And so that's when I started looking over my life, being a cashier and all that other stuff. And I grounded myself for like 6 months. And all I did was Muay Thai kickboxing and read books. And then all the hard work in kickboxing, I lost a lot of weight. All the information and knowledge I was gaining from these different stories of all these people that grew and became more than what they ever were, what people thought they could be. I decided to go back to school, and I was like, you know what? I can do that. So that's when I wrote down the goals. I was like, I'm going to go to community college, Maricopa Community College in Oceanside, California. I'm going to get all A's and go to the best university, transfer to UC Cal Berkeley. And then I said I was going to go to Harvard. Didn't quite make it to Harvard with my past transcripts and grades, but I did graduate from USD School of Law. And so by writing your goals, so you had goals, AKA, I'm going to call them dreams. When you were younger, you had an awakening moment, right? Because something happened in your life. We won't get down into the reasons why you got arrested. That's not the important part. The important part, one, is you disappointed your mom, and that really got to you. And that was your trigger point. I always say we can look back on our lives and see and connect the dots and where the transition points were. And that is definitely in your life a transition point. And that's where you said, okay, you made a decision of a specific direction you wanted to go in life, and those are goals, and you wrote them down. Definitely.
So, guys, again, we can see here now, and just so you guys understand, Vernon's a practicing attorney today here in Las Vegas. And I'm reading you correctly. That was definitely pivotal when you saw that you wrote those goals down and then you achieved those goals. Did it just inspire you to be a regular goal setter and write them down?
No, I can't say that I just started writing everything down. I wrote some goals down since then, but I generally don't write the goals down. But it's funny because I have wrote goals down, and I looked at them a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, these are some of these same goals I'm still trying to achieve. And so I wish I would have never stopped reading it. Like, I took a picture of it once I found the goals. I was like, oh, I'm going to keep reading it and soak it up and try to apply it.
Absolutely. And it's okay. Listen, when we write our goals down, there's a rule to writing goals, right? And there's an 80-20 rule in life, period. And you've known about that rule. And when we write our goals down, if we reach our goals were not big enough, right? We need to aspire to do bigger and better things for ourselves and or our community and where we live. So if you do reach your goals, right, you're not right. So you should reach about 80%. But if you write your goals down and you're reaching 20% of your goals, then you're not working hard enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this is a lesson for people that are out there is we need to write our goals down. And you had mentioned, hey, it was the same goal that I had before. And that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's just one that you didn't get to yet. Doesn't mean that you can't or won't, but that means, hey, I still want to achieve that, right? So if we're reaching 80% of our goals, that's just part of the 20% we didn't get. That's fine. And or, listen, goals are going to change, right? Since I've met you, you've gotten married, you've had your first child, you got another child on the way. So goals are going to change because life's going to change.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? But the importance of actually writing them down, we really need, if we don't know where we're going, we're not going to get there.
True.
We're just not going to get there. So I can't stress enough when I talk to my audience and you as a guest that, man, guys, write those things down. And if you can write them down literally, I know people that write them daily and or weekly and or at least minimum monthly, and review them and watch them because they'll change. And there's nothing wrong with changing them. You can change them daily if you want, right? But the point is you have a goal and you should have long-term, mid-term, short-term goals, right? And typically your short-term goals is a way to get to your long-term goal, right? You're just reverse engineering what you want to get to. And so if it's a monetary goal, right? Well, I need to do X, Y, Z to get to this point by this date. to this point by that date, and then I'll reach my goal kind of a thing, right? So great lesson there on goals. I hope maybe you think a little bit different about them once you leave here today.
Well, I got to push back a little bit because I do think right now goals is important, but currently some of the goals that I'm singularly focused on them that I don't need to write them down. I get up every day and chase after it, and I think it's kind of wrong with our country right now. It's a education versus application type of issue where people think they need to have the perfect situation, know everything they can before they get started, and they use that as a crutch or a reason why they're not going after it, as opposed to just applying the little bit of information you do know and figuring it out on the way. And so I definitely think writing goals down is important. So I agree with what you said in theory, but also in practice, I think just getting up and going after it, even if you don't know where you're going, just sprint there.
Well,
run in the wrong direction and you'll change course and figure out on the way.
True, but also, for a lot of folks, we need to see these little wins.
True.
Right? And by writing these goals down, if you can do it daily, which is, I actually recommend it, because even again, I know that you're an early riser because you go to the gym and that's a routine, and you're saying I don't have to write that down because that's already a routine. It's programmed in me. But if you actually wrote that down, and that may be the first thing on your list, right? That I'm getting up at 2:15 and I'm going to go work out. But at the end of the day, I'll just example of numbers. I had 10 things on my list of my goals that I need to reach today, and you knew that you reached 7 out of 10. You're had a good day. Versus, I only reached 2 or 3 out of 10, but you didn't actually count the other ones because they're routine. Psychologically, people tend to think, I didn't get as much done today. Well, in fact, you did. You just didn't write them down, so it doesn't look like you did. So it is important to write those things down. It really is, because it will subconsciously make you feel better about yourself and that you're achieving goals, and you probably will push yourself for the harder goals, right? Yeah, we're going to have easier goals, right? The ones like you already have as a routine, but recognizing and patting yourself on the back for reaching as many as you do is a really good thing. It will help you in the long run on the bigger goals. But I agree with you. People are procrastinators for multitude of reasons of why they do procrastinate about whatever it is that they're procrastinating about. But I think goals can help discipline you to stay on track when you write them down. Because then you're either on track or you're off track. And now if your goal was I want to save enough money to buy a house next year, and then next year gets here and you're like, I still can't buy the house because I don't have enough money. Well, because you didn't track it all the way. You should have known I need to save $X out of every check to be able to buy, whether it's a house, car, whatever it may be.
That's fair.
But my point is that when you do that, now you know why. I can connect the dots going back. That's why I didn't reach my goal.
Definitely. It's like a back end. Companies track all these statistics or
KPI
sports analytics. In a
business, if you don't track your KPIs, your key performance indicators, your business isn't going to thrive because you don't know where you're winning or losing. It's I like to use the analogy of sports, right? Could you picture and imagine watching, let's just say a football game? There was no scoreboard, and you didn't know the score of the game. How exciting would that be to watch that game?
Well, I'm a big fan of defense, so if it was the Baltimore Ravens when Ray Lewis was playing,
I know, but if you didn't know the score, am I hoping that they're winning or am I hoping they're not losing, right? The scoreboard tells us you're cheering harder. Right? We're going up by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, or vice versa. We're down by 3, right? And the defense is now picking up the game. This guy's can't. Again, the scoreboard allows us. It's a KPI. And in sports, there's thousands of them, right? From the main score to the quarter we're in, to the play we're on, to whoever's playing, the stats. This guy caught this many catches or this many yards. I mean, the KPIs are endless. Let's just in any given sport, really, right? And so we need to really treat life that way. We really do. If we want to win the Super Bowl of life, we need to know the score of any given time in your life. What's the score in my life?
That's true.
Am I in the second quarter, third quarter? Is it 2 minutes to go in the game? I mean, where am I at? If we don't know where we're going, we can't get there. So, again, big lesson I love to teach about that. Let's talk to the audience real quick. You're 41. You've done a lot of self-teaching. Right. And so you've got a lot of knowledge in your head and you're getting ready to have the second baby. right now at 41, let's go back 20 years at 21. What would Vernon tell 21-year-old Vernon? What advice, if you could be your own mentor, knowing where you were at 21, what you were doing, which sounds like you were at school, what advice would you give him?
To have a positive mental attitude, to wake up early every day, to work out, and to just be the best person you could be. And that's I guess, an open-ended or vague advice, but in every situation, learn as much as possible, be a good person. And I think all that comes from the discipline. Like now I wake up pretty early. I was waking up at 2:45, but I needed to get a little more done. So now I'm waking up at 2:15. So I think that inflicting suffering in your day teaches you to overcome adversity, and it gets you ready for whatever adversity the world's going to throw. So if something happens in my normal life and between 9 to 5 or whatever people work, it's okay. I'm not going to freak out because, one, I've been up probably 6-7 hours, and I'm ready to attack the day. My positive mental attitude is so high because I already stacked so many W's for that day.
See, I love that. So there's listeners out there. It's not easy to get up those hours, guys. I would imagine most people get up around 6 on average, right? People who work a 9 to 5 are getting up at 6 a.m. But your advice to what you were going to tell your 21-year-old self 20 years ago, the people that are listening out there, this is why Vernon is where he is today, right? He's a hardworking, loving father/husband, right? He has his goals that he wants to get to, but he knows that it ain't just going to happen.
I'm an author too.
And an author, right? I did read your new book, which is awesome. So you found time in your busy schedule, you found time to do that.
Funny thing is, I wrote that book years ago, and didn't really get it illustrated. And I don't know. I know execution is worship, so it popped in my head that, hey, man, you need to get this done. And I did. And one of my best friends growing up, Jamil Beasley, his daughter, she wrote me like a video review. She was like, "Oh, your book was great. It was amazing." And that the way her voice inflected, or the tone, the amazing. I was thinking about writing a second book, but I was like, I'm pretty busy. But when she said that, I was like, shit, I got to write a second book. And it was for moms, because it was a children's book, the first book.
Right.
Second was a children's book. The first one is called My Father Down the Street, and it's about, being a positive role model, or finding a positive role model outside the home when your dad's not around. Unfortunately, a lot of kids in America right now can identify with that.
Exactly.
And the second book, because I had to show some love to my mom and all the mothers out there. It's called Not All Superheroes Wear Capes. And I talked to her a little bit about it today when I talked about my mom switching jobs to take care of me and my sister. But that book is dedicated to the women out there.
Nice.
And I'm getting it illustrated right now.
So what made you, since you wrote that book so long ago, said, you know what? I'm going to actually get this book published, right? Get the illustrations done and get that thing published. What was the motivating factor of that? And the reason I asked that question, because I think we all have procrastinated goals that we want to. You wrote that book. I'm sure when you wrote it, you wanted to automatically make it a book, right? And so I just want the lesson to be for the folks out there. I want to find out your answer in a second. It's okay that it may take time until you actually reach that goal that you want, right? And I'm sure there's reasons that there were, and we'll find out. But how can we help the folks out there that were in that same mindset, basically, of you had whatever that first thought was to write that book, and then it sat on the shelf for however long, you can share that with us, and then decided, you know what, the world needs to hear this story?
Well, I think too many people tell other people to do what they can do. Just do what you can. Don't worry about it. Just do what you can. And I think that's terrible advice. I think you should tell people to do what they can't. If you hold people to a higher standard, they'll rise to it. Now, maybe not all the time, and some people just can't, because if you hold them to such a high standard, they'll falter. But if you expect more out of people and let them know you expect more, but, push them along the way, not negatively, give them constructive criticism when they need it, give them praise when they deserve it, but let them know you see more in them. A lot of people like, oh, it's okay, she's young or he's young or they're figuring it out, and just make excuses. One thing my mom never did was make excuses. Sometimes she's a little hard on me, undeservedly so, if you ask me, but I appreciate it, and so I think holding people to a higher standard, because I hold myself to a pretty high standard, and I don't hold anybody to my standard, my personal expectations for myself, but I let them know that I see that there's more in them. So don't tell me you want to do something, because almost every time we talk, I'm gonna ask. It's not me putting pressure on you or trying to put my own particular goals on you. But if you tell me you want to write a book, or you want to lose weight, or you want to do this, or you want to do that, I'm gonna ask you. I'm that friend that holds you accountable.
Which is, we all need that, right? That's what mentors are for, right? That's why I highly encourage people to get mentors. And that's why I asked you earlier, would you be a mentor? Because if you could change one life in your lifetime from mentorship, not making money because out of, that seems like a good person, male or female, didn't matter. They're like, I want to help them because I think if I help them just a little bit, mentor them, then they'll pay it forward. Because picture and imagine all the people, if we decide to pay things forward, what a better world we could live in, right?
Indeed.
And by you, the way you just described it, not what you can do is what you can't do, and push yourself a little more. I think today's world where we want instant gratification and satisfaction for everything, like things take time. Not everything's going to happen instantly. And if it doesn't happen instantly for you, whatever it may be, you can't get upset about it. Sometimes we have to work hard for things, and you've worked hard for things in your life. It didn't happen overnight, right? You've been, like you said, I mean, you're a studier for life. That's likely what you're just going to do for the rest of your life anyway, is always be a student of life, and that's great. Let's switch tables here for a second. You've been married now, how many years? Is it 5?
Coming up on 6. It'll be 6, June 23rd.
So since we're on Money Conversations with KJ, are you comfortable talking about money with people?
Perfectly comfortable.
When I was listening to this other podcast, I think it was today. I think it was this morning. Anyway, finances as money is the number one reason people get divorced. Number one. And I follow this other gentleman who basically does what I do. And he's talked to a lot of folks. And do you remember with your wife now having money conversations in your relationship prior to getting married? Did you guys talk about money?
Maybe a little, not as much, probably because I didn't want to start a fight, which is stupid because it just starts more, it'll just keep more fights going. I think you can actually lose a partner, lose a spouse if you don't have those important conversations early on. And we have them. Baby, I love you. But she gets mad at me because I call her a consumer. She's a spender too.
That's okay. There's a lot of them out there.
No, it is okay, but it ain't okay at the same time. I wanted to be a producer. And I think to answer your question earlier that I didn't answer, finishing the book, I did that a lot because of Ryan, my daughter. I wanted her to, I want that to be normal. Kind of like before we were talking, I was saying how your kids, they don't understand how good they got it. You've been giving them this life advice their whole life about money, about different things, about how the world works. And they're just thinking it's just dad talking. And my wife, her family, they were in business and they were probably giving them some of those similar talks. Her mom was in risk management. Her dad was an appraiser. And my mom never had those type of conversations with me growing up. There's not much she could say. She wasn't very knowledgeable on those topics.
Right.
So being in a house where there's a dearth of those type of conversations, when you see it and you're craving it, it's nurturing. You're like, wow, I can't believe this, And then I see my I see my wife's reaction to it. And she's like, oh, okay, it's just mom talking. I was like, no. What are you talking about? These are gold nuggets that not everybody gets.
Right.
And so I think one of the main reasons for me to finish that book and do a lot of things, like you say, it was motivation and goals, but I want my daughter to see me as a producer And I don't want her just to be a consumer in life. I want her to see an entrepreneur, a businessman,
Well,
success.
which is great because we know now it's a fact just because of all the conversations. Whether if we don't sit down and talk to our kids about not just money, but what the family's doing with money, right? And I know a lot of folks will say, well, they're too young. I won't talk to them about money until they're, 18 or some older age. And I go, it's too late then.
Way too late.
They've already formed their one. It's too late when they formed a personality. And again, that's why I know through conversation that kids are learning these lessons, these money lessons between the ages of 5 and 7. Because 5 years old, we're giving our kid, here's $1, go get some candy or whatever, right? And now they know they're trading this for that. It's $1 and I get this, whatever, candy bar, whatever it is, right? And so if we don't sit there, and in your case, like a lot of cases where at home, if mom's having to work multiple jobs to make sure there's a roof over the head, all the bills are paid, food on the table, all these, necessities, not realizing at these early ages the sacrifices that our parents are doing, right? We think it's normal. It's not normal to work 3 jobs. It's just not.
No.
You can work whatever job you want and work 10, 12 hours a day. That's fine, but they're watching us. And so I'm a huge advocate of having money conversations as early as possible and letting them know about the household income.
Yeah,
They may not understand at 5 or 7. Hey, I make 120 grand a year. Dad makes another 120. Our house is $X. The food is $X. And we went on 3 vacations last year. That was $X. Like, here's what's left. You know what I mean? I think if we have these conversations early like that, by the time they get to 10, 12, 14, they understand it.
Yeah.
And when they don't get what they want to get, they understand it. And they don't get upset. They don't throw tantrums. Why aren't you buying me this? I'm a good kid. I didn't cry this week, or whatever their silly reasons are. You know what I mean? Your daughter's still young. What is she?
She just turned 1 on April 2nd.
Yeah. So you're in a prime position now to get yourself ready to have these conversations. You're some years out, but getting ready for that. But the problem is you won't see dividends of those conversations for 15, 20 years.
Yeah, but compound interest.
Yeah, compound, right? You won't see that. And then if they sit on a podcast like this, and I've only had 2 people that sat in this chair here where they shared with me their parents did, and they do well with money today. Like they've literally never had money issues because they got taught really early in life versus too many parents go, no, they don't need to know about that.
It makes sense because we kind of teach what we know. And I was sitting outside or sitting in my office. I was hearing a couple case managers. Anybody that don't know, like, in personal injury, there's teams. Like there's case managers, assistants, all type of different people. But anyway, I was sitting in my office and I was listening to a conversation because it was right outside my door. I didn't want to be listening to it. But everybody was getting on this one case manager because she wouldn't let her son have a job. He's a real smart kid. I think he does coding, does a couple other things. And they was like, oh, you need to let him do a job. She's like, no, I don't want him to work right now. And they like, why not? He should work, learn the value of money and this and that. And so I go out there and I say, no, Marissa, you're doing the right thing. Your kid is smart. Let him keep doing what he's doing because who knows where coding can go. Teach him to be an entrepreneur, not an employee. Employer, not employee. Let him use his mind. Let him be creative because too many people, for whatever reason, they think this same system or same thing that they were taught, which didn't work, kick them out when they're 18 and tell them to get the first job that they can find, which is probably a low-paying job where they need to move in with a roommate or a girlfriend or boyfriend just to pay the rent and be in a situation that they don't want to be in is going to lead to ruin. And they think that's the way to go. But no, that's a terrible, terrible money conversation. And
that was a mindset by her, okay? And that's probably where she came from. And I like to say, I like, and I probably won't live long enough to see it, but I would like to see generational change, break the chain, right? Because poverty is generational. Like we already know parents can't teach what parents don't know. That's not a bad thing. And I use the example of my dad was not a mechanic. I was a okay mechanic when I was younger. He couldn't teach me any of that. That wasn't bad that he couldn't teach me mechanics. That just wasn't his forte. He was a musician, right? And so when I share with people, like, don't think bad of your mom and dad because they didn't teach you about money, but they can't teach you what they don't know.
True.
Right? They just don't. What you can do is break the chain, break the cycle. Let the next generation be, like in your case with your young kids, teach them about money early as possible, the value of it, the value of growing money. When it's not about making it. We're all going to make money in our lifetimes, all of us. It's what we do with it that's the most important. And I think if we teach these lessons to kids that become young adults, that become consumers versus investors, right? You can become a consumer when it's time. But I think most people become consumers too early. And that can be at a fault of a parent not teaching their kid early enough. And so we got to break those cycles.
Yeah, I can't wait to become a consumer. But I just want to consume different things. Like you said, those Rolls
We all have different passions
clothes.
and wants in life of what we want to do, right? Some people are avid travelers. They just want it every dime they make. I know people who just want to travel. I mean, every money they make, they just want to just be on the road traveling somewhere, and they don't care. They don't drive a good car or whatever, and it's like, I just want to see the world, which, okay, whatever floats your boat is fine.
I like to see the road, but I like to drive to the airport in a nice car too.
Yeah, I want to do it on my terms, right? I don't want to spend my last dollars to go wherever.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sit in coach.
May be. Well, I tell you what, we learned a lot today. I think reading, we all know, we hear it all the time. You're an avid reader. You're a very intelligent guy. You're a young father. You learned about goals and writing them down, right? I think you might have a different mindset on goals after today's conversation. But I want you guys out there listening today that you got to know where you're going or you're not going to get there. And if you don't know where you're going, don't expect a lot out of life. It's going to be hard. And nobody wants to live a hard life. So, Vernon, thanks for coming out today and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, it was awesome. And for you guys out there, if you're watching us on YouTube, do me a favor. If you haven't subscribed already, smash that like button. Subscribe to my channel. We got plenty of these videos that come out on a regular basis. And if you haven't subscribed to the actual podcast, please do that. I try to get them out about once a week or every other week, maybe. If you want to be on the podcast, reach out to me and I'll put you on. All right, guys.
Everybody tell Kevin to have me back in a couple months. I got some more things to share.
All right, we'll do. All right, guys, you take care out there and have yourself a good day. Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed making all these episodes for you. Remember, we're just having conversations with people's journey with money and the things they did right with it, the things that did wrong with it, and how did they really come about getting their mindset with money. So every episode's different. We all have a good takeaway from them. So do me a favor. Hit the like button, smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel because every episode that I do is going to be different as all our journeys are different. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week.